RedZoneSports.bet, the British home of American sports.
And welcome to the Sportsheads in association with Red Zone Sports. I'm Georgia Blakey, NFL superfan and all-round Yankophile, and some call me a mother trucker, but I think that's because I drive a pickup. And we are here today with Matt Phillips from 40 Yard Scouting and the lovely Simon Millam from Lindy Sports.
See, I'm lovely. That's good. That's a good start. We like you, Georgia.
And, yes, and today we are going to be discussing the top running back draft prospects. Let's kick that off with Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I think it's going to be obvious that Saquon Barkley is going to be the first running back taken, considering what we've been hearing from teams. There's nothing. He's almost become an afterthought in some respects because he can do everything. Yep. And there's really not much in terms of weakness in his game. The only weakness, if you're going to be really picky, would be his pass protection. But that can be worked on. But everything else, he runs routes.
That is a coaching issue, isn't it? I mean,
yes, it is.
It's a coaching issue at Penn State. But the fact that he's going to go to a better organisation, he's got. For me, he's very elusive, Matt. And the other thing, he's been compared in some respects to Todd Gurley. People have sort of talked of him as though he's an Ezekiel Elliott sort of clone, but he's better. He's a Gurley. He's more elusive, more explosive. He's the complete package. He is going to be elite. He's going to be, the first name on fantasy drafts, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be the centerpiece of an offense. Sometimes when I watch him, I do feel they can be a little bit impatient, trying to force things. But perhaps, I think sometimes that's just how much of a team guy he is. Like I say, he runs routes like a wide receiver. He's very elusive. He's generally most of the time patient, despite he's trying to force things at times. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those guys that he's so smooth and ticks all the boxes that you almost want to look at some of the other prospects. And
you want him to go to a good home, of course. Is he going to miss Beaver? I mean, the Beaver Stadium. Is he going to miss that?
I don't know. I think he's, wherever he's going to go, he's going to fit in. He's going to suit many different types of offenses.
Yeah, I mean, he's had 5.7 yards per carry. It's a fair reflection of what he is in that offense. 1,300 yards.
Defensive line at Penn State's not been great. So he's done that himself. And one thing that I tend to look at as a scout is at the running back position, can these guys create their own yards? There's been plenty of running backs over the years that have put up gaudy numbers, but they're only running what's given to them. Barkley, he can manufacture his own yards, even though there's the smallest of gaps in to fit through.
He fits into any system, basically.
He does. He's scheme diverse. Yeah, I've got a feeling he's going to go to Cleveland.
What about Bryce Love? Stanford?
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't particularly highly rated. I mean, he was on my watch list, but I didn't expect the season that he's had as a sort of Heisman dark horse, if you like.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey's replacement, wasn't he? I mean, he's done a fair job, and he, like you say, he's sort of impressed the more the season's going on at USC.
Yes, I think he has, and just from the first game in Australia this season, he's one of those guys that you thought, wow, this guy's got something. And I think there was a worry there that they were going to have to fill the boots of McCaffrey. And in fact, Love is, he's had a Heisman-like campaign. And again, he's very elusive, and he's forced the most missed tackles in college football this season.
8.1 yards a carry and over, 2,000 yards, 2,100 yards, I think, something like that. It's a phenomenal, for someone that you think you were sort of questioning what they were going to do after McCaffrey. He's done remarkably well. So he's obviously draft stock's going to be a lot higher. Does he go first round?
If he comes out, if he declares it, he goes first round, no question. And
on to Nick Chubb, Georgia.
Yeah, I've really liked Nick Chubb over the last 2 years. He's one of those guys that you really root for because he's had injuries to both of his knees, major injuries that would have called time on a career for many other players. He's battled back. It's taken a while to get his explosiveness back. Yeah. And there are times when, against Auburn when he was a little bit quiet, but he is kind of your earth, wind and fire back. He'll give you the hard yards. And once he's tackled, he can create yards after contact. Again, he can manufacture those himself, and he does have elusive speed at times to reach the outside.
He has. I think he was hampered with those, the injuries early on. But I was pretty disappointed with Nick Chubb, and I saw him live against Auburn. Sure. I expected much more of him. And Georgia went into that game as favourites down in Auburn. But he's been hampered somewhat in the respect that Georgia have got a very big stable of backs. I mean, I've been more impressed actually with Sonny Michel.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to be a value pick a little bit further down the draft. I think he's the one out of Georgia. If I was going to take one out of Georgia, it would be him, simply because he's more of a pass catching back as well. He's had more experience doing that. He's more NFL ready, I think. It may be that Nick Chubb is sort of more coachable and will probably end up being the better back. But at the moment, if you look for an NFL ready team, I think Sonny Michel's the man. Yeah,
I think Nick Chubb is NFL ready now, so he can go into a situation and carry a heavy load. Obviously, he's going to have durability issues going into the off season, and they're going to be questioned. So those two really, I love watching those two play. Like you say, Michel is the dynamic guy. He's like your Alvin Kamara type. He can do a number of different things. Yeah.
Well, speaking of carrying, what about Kerryon Johnson?
Yeah, he's one of my favourites. I just love his patience. If you're thinking of, I hate to use labels, but if you're thinking of the way Le'Veon Bell plays for Pittsburgh, Kerryon Johnson is very similar. He doesn't really need that blocking to be done for him. He can. He's got great vision. He's got instant acceleration off his back foot. So
good quickness, good cutting ability. He's tall. He's 6 foot. Yeah. Like you say, he has got great vision. I mean, he was only 5 yards per carry, but a lot of those yards were on his own back. And 1,300 yards, 17 TDs. He seemed a complete package, and and the other thing about him was when he was playing at Auburn this year, he was playing hurt, especially the back end of the season against the likes of Alabama, and yet he still did it. So durability and toughness, that's something that the NFL scouts look at.
Yeah, I think he's intelligent enough to kind of avoid the trash as well, and he goes through defensive lines as if they're not there, and he gets skinny in the gap, and he just makes it look very easy and very smooth. So he doesn't necessarily wow people on a grander level, but as scouts, I think you look at that translatable trait of being able to manufacture your own success, and he does that.
And what does, sorry for those at home who don't know, what does getting skinny in the gap mean? For me, it's going and buying a pair of jeans and dieting for a week before. Yeah. But what's that term mean?
I'm having trouble with that this week after Christmas. Things are a bit tighter. It basically means sort of flexibility in the upper and lower half body of their body in terms of getting through the smallest gaps and slipping through without contact.
So they kind of stretch.
It's all about body control. And be able to have a compact style in carrying the football.
Unlike us.
Right. And Darius Geis.
Darius Geis,
Darius Geis.
And he's the guy who's got the great backstory of having grown up, having a tough background, and his mother moving him for the sake of his own career, at the detriment of the family. He just loves football. He plays with that sort of enthusiasm, and he's another one who he just forces tacklers to miss him. Whenever you watch him, it's 5-10 yards down the line before someone touches him. Wow. And he's got that sort of, he's a smaller build, but he's got that kind of powerful lower half that he can win the leverage battle, and he plays a good pad level. I'll
be honest, I haven't seen a lot of him this year, so I'm going to take your word for that one. Right? A couple of sleepers that that you've got the likes, you've got the likes of Martez Carter at Grambling State. Now, with him, he's a bit bigger than Tarek Cohen. People have compared him to him. I think he's arguably as good as him. He's 5.3 yards a carry, or 5.1 yards per carry. He's had 10 touchdowns, 854 yards catching. He's very versatile. He's in the All-Star game, so we'll be interested to see how he comes out of that. One I really like, who is completely under the radar, is Justin Jackson at Northwestern. Now, the thing with him, he's been compared to Le'Veon Bell. Scouts are saying that he needs to sort of lose a little bit of weight, exactly as Le'Veon Bell did.
He's one of those guys that, unfortunately, whenever I've watched him, I've not been massively impressed. I am a Northwestern fan as well, and he is a great player.
He's only 4.5 yards a carry, but I just look at it in the context of what they've had and what they've done this year.
Yeah, the majority of that is what he's done for himself, and he's been the focal point. He's taken the pressure off the quarterback there, Clayton Thorson. So,
who's another sleeper, who's a really good player, who could be a very decent low-level pick.
Very much so. Yeah, but I think with running backs, I mean, every year you hear the same that sort of rhetoric. There aren't going to be many running backs taken. The position has been devalued. But I think, as we've seen in the last 2 drafts, it's such a deep class. And for me personally, I prefer taking running backs lower down the draft, so 3rd, 4th round. For example, we had guys, so Tariq Cohen in the late rounds. We've had Kareem Hunt in the 4th round. The difference between guys like Saquon Barkley and the likes of Ronald Jones, the second, who's my top-rated running back this year, you can get him a round or 2 later and get the same production.
Any sleepers?
I like Janavion Grant at Western Michigan. He's more of a power back and very productive in the MAC. But you look through the class. There's just so many.
It is deep, isn't it?
It is deep, and there's LJ Scott as well. If he comes out this year,
another one that's sort of compared to Le'Veon Bell, very patient but a powerful runner.
He's a bit of a clone, particularly he plays for the same college that Bell came from.
Exactly.
Spartans.
The
problem with him, I expected him to have a huge season this year, but disciplinary off the field issues have really hampered his progress.
There are a couple of red flags, but
what are those red flags off the field?
I think it's run-ins with the law generally. So, which is kind of taking a sort of side hit to his progress this season. I expected a lot from him, but he's got another year. So depending on his relationship with the coaches there, whether he'll go back or whether he'll declare.
Maybe he needs a little more maturity, but certainly a future prospect.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about college kids.
Exactly.
We've already discussed Sonny Mitchell. What about Akram Wadley, Iowa?
I think you're more of a fan of him than I am, actually, Simon. You've been quite big.
Yeah, which means we're probably not as high on him as we should be, I think. I mean, he's productive. There's another guy who's very patient, hits the holes hard. He got good vision, makes good cuts. I do like him. I just think he's more of a power runner for me. Yeah,
he does hit the outside particularly sort of fast. Because considering his size, he does hit the outside, and once
who would you compare him to?
It's a difficult comparison, to be honest. He's very unique because he's built like a power back, but then he hits at the outside, and once he's got through into the second level of the defense, he's very tough to catch. He's got like a second level acceleration, which you wouldn't perhaps expect. The only problem with scouting him is that he's playing, behind the Iowa offensive line, which is
you never know how.
Always so well coached.
Exactly. So he might be a little fly in the ointment for coaches. Might think he's better than he really is. I'm not. That's why I'm sort of.
I think the off season is going to be important. How is he going to do when he's playing with guys he's not familiar with?
But then we don't see enough of them to sort of necessarily make that judgment. We've seen him in flashes, and what we've seen has been remarkably good. So. Great.
Ronald Jones, USC.
I love Ronald Jones. Whenever I watch him, the way he moves, the way he's built, he's slightly taller than most running backs in this class.
What height would that be?
At the moment, he's measured at 6'1". He'd probably come a little bit below that. But he just reminds me of the way he moves and the way he's built of Jamal Charles. I mean,
that's a good shout. Yeah.
He's just got that. Yeah. He's just got that great sort of patience again, but also that acceleration that he can turn on and off as he wants to. He just seems to glide through offensive lines, and once he's gone, then he's got another level of acceleration.
Great, good chat.
Josh Adams, Notre Dame.
Yeah, mixed feelings with Josh Adams. I mean, he's running behind what is a bully of an offensive line. He particularly runs behind McGlinchey and Quentin Nelson on the left-hand side of that Irish offensive line. So I like to see how he does on a sort of neutral scenario in the off-season. But again, he's another guy who can break tackles. He's forced many missed tackles this season. And again, in the right system, I think he'll be a good value pick in the mid-rounds of the draft.
Yeah, talking of value picks, I mean, the last one I've got on the list there is Royce Freeman at Oregon. Yeah. He's a power back, 6 foot, 1,400 yards, something like that. I mean, I think he's value. He's what, 14 touchdowns. I mean, he's there for all to see. He's done it exactly from what he's had in front of him. I think he's done remarkably well. I think he's a value 3rd or 4th round pick. I think we are sort of looking sort of lower end 3rd, 4th, but like you say, it's very, very, very deep. I mean, I've got him about 12th on the list, and it shows you what a deep class that is because he's productive.
It's forgotten about a little bit because of the Pac-12. Obviously, Pac-12 players do get
been down this year.
They get undervalued as well because most people, you know, especially in the UK, you know, we're not watching a lot of Pac-12 football unless you're in the business. So
you can tell how tired we are.
Yeah,
we stay up watching.
They tend to get forgotten. But he gets dinged for playing for Oregon as well, which is, you know, a high volume offense. But he's one of those guys that's got that sort of great, powerful lower body. And he plays with low pads, so yeah, he's another one to look out for and a value pick.
A big thank you to Simon and to Matt for discussing our boys of the future. I've been Georgia Blakey for the Sportsheads. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
RedZoneSports.bet, the British home of American sports.